Learn to ignore a man the right way. He will chase you like an addict, Carl Jung. There's a paradox about attraction that most women have felt but rarely understand in words. Sometimes, the most powerful move you can make is no move at all. You may feel like ignoring a man or not texting. Not watching his stories, not checking in, is counterintuitive. Isn't connection the key to building love? Doesn't effort prove interest? Aren't we supposed to show up, give love, and be present? But here's the truth no one tells you. Presence without value becomes invisible. The more you give without being received, the less you're noticed. This isn't because you lack worth. It's because your energy has become predictable. That's where Carl Jung's insights begin to shift everything. Jung spoke of projection, how we unconsciously place parts of ourselves onto others. When you constantly reach out to a man, you're not just showing care. You're unconsciously handing over your light, hoping he'll reflect it back. But in doing so, you may be feeding his ego more than nurturing a true connection. And what happens when you stop? Everything. Because when you withdraw your energy, you stop validating his sense of importance in your life. You stop feeding the illusion that is comfort. Attention or an occasional breadcrumb of affection is enough. Your absence starts to speak louder than your presence ever did. He may not notice at first, but soon that silence becomes deafening. This isn't about punishment. It's not about manipulation. It's about power, your energetic power. Most women were never taught this. We grew up learning to be available, kind, generous, and nurturing. We believed that our value lay in how much we could give. So we text first. We ask about his day. We check to see if he watched our stories. We send heart emojis hoping he sends one back. And with every small offering of our energy, we shrink. Not because we're weak, but because we've given too much, too soon, too often, without anything in return. And so he doesn't chase. He doesn't step up. He doesn't feel your absence because he's never been forced to live without your presence. Here's the shift. Men don't fall in love when you give them everything. They fall in love when they feel the lack of what you once gave freely. Think of it this way. Human psychology is wired for contrast. We notice light because we've known darkness. We feel joy because we've tasted sorrow. And we value someone's presence only when we've felt their absence. So the question becomes, have you ever given him the chance to miss you? Not out of a game, but out of self-respect. Not because you want him to chase, but because you want to protect your light from being poured into a black hole. When you stop giving automatically, a powerful transformation begins. You stop operating from fear. Fear of being forgotten, fear of losing him, fear of not being enough. And you start acting from your worth. This is the moment you stop chasing. And here's the irony. The moment you stop chasing is the exact moment when everything begins to shift in your favor. Because now your absence is magnetic. Carl Jung said that what we chase represents unconscious parts of ourselves, our desires, our fears, our wounds. When you chase a man, what are you really chasing? Maybe it's not him at all. Maybe it's the feeling of being enough. Maybe it's the idea of being chosen. Maybe it's a wound that tells you you must earn love rather than receive it. But when you stop, when you choose to do nothing, you stop chasing the idea of love, and you start becoming love. That's why ignoring him in the right way works. Not as a punishment, not with malice, but with the graceful energy of detachment. He doesn't get to access you on demand anymore. He doesn't get to feel your warmth without giving something in return. And this space creates mystery, and mystery creates desire. Mystery is what keeps a man thinking about you, wondering about you, trying to solve the puzzle of who you are. But if you're always explaining, always texting, always proving your worth, where is the mystery? Mystery isn't manipulation, it's sacred. It's the space between two people, where respect, curiosity, and genuine effort can grow. Without space, there's no longing, and without longing, there's no romance. That's where your silence becomes powerful. Because in your silence, he begins to hear everything he used to ignore. He starts to notice your absence, the way he took you for granted, the emotional safety net that is now gone. His ego begins to feel the void you left, and suddenly, he's the one wondering, why isn't she reaching out? Did I lose her? Is she seeing someone else? Was she more important to me than I realized? That's when you start to live in his mind. That's when you stop being invisible. Because now, the energetic dynamic has shifted. He no longer feels in control. He's no longer being fed. And that shift forces him to act from truth, not comfort. If he only ever cared about your attention, he'll vanish. Let him. But if he truly values you, he'll begin to move toward you. Not just with words, but with action. And that is how you begin to filter ego from authenticity. So what does doing nothing look like? It looks like not texting him first. It looks like resisting the urge to check his profile or story views. It looks like focusing on your life, your passions, and your goals. It looks like embodying peace rather than proving worth. It looks like redirecting the energy you used to give him back into yourself, because you're not here to be someone's option. You're not here to be easy comfort or emotional support for someone who gives you inconsistency in return. You're here to be chosen with clarity, with intention, and you can't be chosen if you're always choosing first. The moment you step back, you give a man the space to reveal his true intentions. Will he move toward you or away from you? Will he fight for your presence or fade without it? Let that answer reveal everything. You are not being cold, you are not being cruel, you are being powerful, because your energy is no longer on discount. It is sacred. And from this place you don't chase, you attract. Let's talk about ego, not just his, but yours too. Because when you begin the journey of withdrawing your energy, of reclaiming your emotional power, you're not just changing a relationship dynamic, you're breaking a cycle. You've probably felt this cycle before. You meet someone, things feel exciting, maybe even electric. You start giving your time, your attention, your care, your energy. It feels natural. You want him to feel seen, supported, and appreciated, and he does. But then something strange happens. He stops giving as much. He takes longer to reply. He becomes distant, vague, and emotionally lazy. You feel the shift, and instinctively you try to fix it. You reach out more, ask him what's wrong, and try to bring back the intimacy you once shared. And in doing so, you start shrinking again, giving more to compensate for what he stopped offering. You become the emotional engine of the relationship, running on empty while he enjoys the ride without lifting a finger. Sound familiar? Carl Jung warned us, when we give too much of ourselves without receiving anything in return, we're not being loving. We're being unconscious. And here's the part most people miss. He's not necessarily a bad person. He might not even be aware of how much he relies on your emotional availability. But he's gotten comfortable being desired, comfortable receiving affection without earning it, comfortable being chased, because your attention feeds his ego. And the ego, it loves being fed. That's why ignoring him, again in the right way, isn't cruel. It's necessary. Because until he feels the loss of your energy, he will never confront the truth of his own emotional immaturity. Men don't usually chase because you gave them everything. They chase because you stopped. When you pull back, he's left with the question, what happened? And if he genuinely cares, this will prompt him to take action. But if he only cared about the way you made him feel, the way you boosted his self-image, then he'll disappear. And thank God he will, because that's your filter. That's how you separate emotional neediness from real emotional depth. Your emotional absence becomes the mirror in which his true intentions are reflected. Understand this: men often aren't aware of the power they hold in a woman's emotional world until she takes it back. When you reply quickly to his half-hearted texts, when you keep checking in even when he doesn't reciprocate, when you keep trying, he doesn't see it as love. He sees it as control, as validation, as proof that he's still the center of your world. But when you stop, when you don't reply instantly, when you let the phone ring, when you don't explain your silence, his ego starts to unravel. That unraveling is good. It's the beginning of transformation, because ego thrives on predictability. And now you've become unpredictable. Now you've become a mystery. And mystery is magnetic. This is how attraction works on a psychological level. When something is too available, we don't value it. It becomes part of the background noise. But when something pulls away, when it becomes scarce, the brain goes into inquiry mode. Why don't I have it anymore? What did I do? Is she gone for good? That's how longing is born. That's when a man starts to see you again, because now there's contrast. Now there's space, and space gives rise to meaning. But here's the important part. You don't do this to manipulate. You're not pulling away so he'll chase. You're pulling away because you've realized you deserve to be pursued, not as a game, but as a reflection of your value. And what is value? It's energy, it's presence. It's the vibration of a woman who knows herself, respects herself, and won't beg to be seen. That's what unsettles the male ego the most. Not yelling, not accusing, not begging, just calm disconnection. That's what makes a man question everything. Because when you stop explaining, when you stop justifying, when you stop reacting, you're saying something far more powerful than words could ever convey. I'm no longer available for crumbs. You no longer get access to my soul for free. If you want me, earn me. This shift is profound. You go from emotionally available to energetically reserved. You go from chasing connection to becoming a container of value. That energy, that stillness, it speaks volumes. You don't need to block him. You don't need to ghost him. You don't even need to be angry. You just need to stop feeding his ego. Stop giving him the illusion that he still has your heart when he's done nothing to deserve it. And if he responds with messages, guilt trips, or passive-aggressive jabs, understand that's not love. That's ego in distress. Ego says, "You were mine. Why aren't you acting the same?" Love says, "I see your silence, and I want to understand it. I want to reach you, not just to regain control, but to rebuild connection. If he truly cares, he will make effort, real effort, not just words, not just temporary attention spikes, but consistent, grounded action. He'll reach out with clarity. He'll ask what changed. He'll want to rebuild the bridge, not because you're punishing him, but because he now sees your value clearly for the first time. And if he doesn't, that's your answer. Not every man deserves access to your heart. Not every man is ready to rise to the level of presence and emotional maturity you offer. And when you realize that, something beautiful happens. You stop chasing and start receiving, because now you're not driven by fear. You're not reacting to a lack of love. You're anchored in your worth. Your silence becomes a boundary. Your stillness becomes your strength. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Most of us chase because we're unconsciously trying to heal a wound. But when you pause, when you step back, when you stop feeding his ego, you start healing that wound by yourself. You don't need him to validate your worth. You don't need his attention to feel whole. You don't need to keep giving to be lovable. You are already enough. Fully, completely, powerfully. And from that truth, You attract only what aligns with your highest self. There's something most women forget in the age of constant connection. Instant replies and emotional overexposure. Silence is power. Not silence born of resentment or cold games, but the kind of silence that arises from deep self-respect. The silence that emerges when you realize you don't have to explain your worth. You just have to embody it. Carl Jung once said, "The soul expresses itself in what is not said." Let that sink in. You don't always have to tell him what's wrong. You don't need to text him to show you care. You don't need to post subtle messages on your stories, hoping he'll watch and get it. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is simply pull your energy back and say nothing. Why? Because silence creates space, and space is the birthplace of awareness. When you stop reacting, you stop giving him predictable emotional cues. You become unreadable, and that unreadability creates a void, a tension that unsettles him. Because suddenly, the emotional rhythm he's grown used to has stopped. The comfort is gone. The attention is gone. The reflection of his own importance in your eyes is gone. You've disappeared without noise, and that noiseless disappearance is more impactful than any argument. Men, especially those used to being pursued or emotionally catered to, aren't prepared for that kind of absence. They're used to emotional access. They're used to women trying to fix, explain, talk, and reconnect. But when you don't reach out, when you don't react, when you don't return the call, you're forcing him to sit with a question. Where did she go? And with that question comes the next one. Why does it matter to me that she's gone? That's when the real transformation begins. Not just in him, but in you. Because silence doesn't only disturb him, it centers you. You begin to realize how much energy you used to pour into making things work. How much time you spent waiting for his reply, decoding his messages, analyzing his behavior. When you're silent, that energy flows back to you. You reclaim your mental space. You reconnect with your own needs. You begin to hear your own voice again, the voice that got drowned out by your desire to be chosen. And here's the deeper truth. Most of us over-communicate when we feel unseen. We over-explain. We overgive, we overreact, all because we fear that if we stop, we'll disappear completely. But here's the paradox. When you go silent with power, you don't disappear. You become unforgettable, not because you're trying to be, but because you've broken the pattern. You've stopped dancing with his ego. And that shift, he feels it. You don't have to block him. You don't have to ignore him in anger. You simply become unavailable. Emotionally, energetically, spiritually. This is not a tantrum. It's not a punishment. It's an awakening. And here's what often happens next. He reacts. Maybe with a casual, "Hey stranger" text. Maybe with a like on your photo. Maybe with sarcasm or passive-aggressive comments. Maybe even with anger. But don't be fooled. That's not love knocking. It's ego trying to regain control. The man who genuinely cares won't just poke at your silence to see if you're still emotionally available. He'll reach out with intention. He'll ask. He'll reflect. He'll pursue. Not just your body, but your heart, your energy, your mind. But many won't. And that's the gift of silence. It shows you who's real. You don't even have to guess anymore, because your absence becomes a test. A sorting tool, a spiritual filter. The one who was only there for your attention will fade. The one who only liked being desired will move on to his next source. But the one who saw you, really saw you, won't let the silence stand. He'll move towards you, not away. And while all of that unfolds, something even more important happens. You grow. You realize your peace isn't negotiable. You realize you're not here to fix anyone. You realize you're no longer available for low-effort love. Carl Jung called this confronting the shadow. The part of ourselves that's been operating unconsciously, chasing, fearing, needing, finally comes into the light. And when it does, you see it clearly. Maybe you used to chase because you didn't believe you were enough. Maybe you used to explain everything because you feared being misunderstood. Maybe you used to overfunction emotionally because you thought love had to be earned. But now you're learning to stand still, to say nothing, to let silence hold the truth for you. Because real boundaries are silent. Not replying to texts that come without intention? That's a boundary. Not accepting last-minute plans? That's a boundary. Not explaining why you pulled back? That's a boundary. Not reacting just because he pokes at you emotionally? That's power. You don't need to perform for your worth anymore. You simply need to embody it. And silence, held with confidence, does just that. There's a moment in every woman's journey when she stops begging to be heard and becomes her own witness. That moment is sacred. That moment is unforgettable. That moment is when a man truly sees what he might have lost. Not because she shouted, not because she blocked him, not because she argued or threatened, but because she stopped talking and started listening to herself. And the truth she hears is this: I don't have to fight to be seen. I don't have to chase what's meant for me. I don't have to be loud to be heard. Your silence is not empty. It is full of boundaries, of self-worth, of transformation. And anyone who truly wants to be part of your life will feel that shift and step forward, not backward. So, let him feel the absence. Let him wonder what changed. Let him sit with the silence you left behind. Because it is in that silence that your voice becomes undeniable. Now that you've reclaimed your silence, your energy, and your power, something fascinating begins to happen. You become a question in his mind instead of an answer in his hand. You're no longer the woman who gave endlessly, always available, always present, and always predictable. You've become a mystery, a symbol, and men don't chase clarity. They chase curiosity. Carl Jung said, "The unconscious moves through symbols, and whether he realizes it or not, your emotional withdrawal has turned you into a symbol of something he wants, can't fully grasp, and suddenly realizes he might lose. You are now no longer just a person to him. You're an idea, a possibility, a reflection of something deeper in himself that he may not yet fully understand. That's where the power of letting him wonder comes in. When you were always available, he didn't have to wonder. You did all the emotional work. You sent the first message. You filled the silence. You soothed the tension. You made the effort. That comfort became his expectation and your self-betrayal. But when you stop, when you leave space, when you stop answering questions he hasn't asked, when you don't explain your silence or justify your pullback, suddenly the emotional weight shifts. Now he has to think. Now he has to question. Now he has to feel. That feeling, that subtle discomfort, that inner ache is what most people try to avoid. But it's also the exact feeling that creates desire. It's not logic that drives people to pursue something they chase because of what they feel missing. So don't fill the gap too soon. That gap is where your magic lives. Let's break down what this looks like. You don't post stories hoping he'll watch them. You don't text him first to check in. You don't try to clarify your silence with soft excuses. Like, "Sorry, I've been busy lately." You don't try to make him jealous. You don't try to show him what he's missing. You simply become a quiet void, and that void is where obsession begins. Not manipulation, not games, just the natural law of energetic rebalancing. People, especially men who are used to being emotionally catered to, don't know what to do. When you stop showing up, the silence isn't just silence anymore. It becomes a mirror. And in that mirror, he sees the way he took you for granted. The fact that he never really tried. the absence of your energy, care, and attention. Now he starts to remember, not because you're reminding him, but because he has space to feel. He rereads your texts. He watches your old stories. He scrolls through your photos. He tries to retrace the moment you started slipping away, but you're not giving him answers. You're not soothing his ego. You're not rushing to reopen the door. And that's when the real chase begins. Not for your body, but for your presence. Because something has shifted. You're no longer emotionally accessible. You're no longer on standby. He's used to you orbiting his world. And now, suddenly, you're in your own galaxy. Carl Jung taught that we all wear masks, personas. We present to the world to feel safe and accepted. When you stop feeding the mask, stop playing along, and stop reacting, you force him to face something he's been avoiding, himself. And here's the truth. If he only wanted attention, he'll lose interest the moment you go silent. Let him. But if he truly values you, the real you, he will not rest until he understands why he's feeling this loss, why he suddenly craves the energy you used to give. That's the difference between someone who wanted to win you over and someone who wants to keep you. So what do you do while he wonders? You rise. You focus on your goals. You take care of your body, your mind, your space. You do your makeup for yourself, not for a mirror. You laugh more. You move in peace because what you're doing is not waiting. You're transforming. You're evolving into a woman who is no longer emotionally dependent on anyone else to feel loved or seen. And that energy, that evolution, it radiates, even in your silence. Here's the beautiful contradiction. You may have walked away from him quietly, but now he hears you more clearly than ever. He may not admit it. He may not even know how to express it, but he feels it. Men are deeply intuitive when they're emotionally unsettled. They can sense when the woman who once made them feel whole is no longer available. And that's when he begins to move. The masculine energy craves purpose, direction, and challenge. When you stop making it easy, when you stop being the one who holds the relationship up on your own shoulders, he either rises or disappears. Both outcomes are victories. If he rises, beautiful. If he disappears, liberation. Because either way, you've reclaimed your time, your spirit, and your value. And this part is crucial. When he comes back, if he does, you must not rush to fill the gap for him. Don't relieve his guilt with reassurance. Don't meet him halfway out of relief that he noticed. Don't pour your energy into fixing what only effort on his part can heal. Let him prove his shift with action, not apology. Let him ask, pursue, initiate, reflect, and change. Because now you know. Your worth is no longer negotiable. Carl Jung once said, "Let that be your mantra." You didn't disappear to teach him a lesson. You didn't pull away to play games. You walked away so you could walk back to yourself. And now the test isn't about whether he comes back. It's about whether he returns ready. Ready to match your effort, your energy, your clarity. This is not about becoming emotionally unavailable or cold. It's about becoming emotionally sovereign. A woman who is not moved by games, delays, or empty promises. A woman who lets a man wonder, not because she wants him confused, but because she wants to see if he's capable of clarity. So let him wonder. Let him feel the absence. Let him experience the silence. Let him ask the questions. Because in doing so, you'll finally get your answer. After everything you've given, your time, your energy, your warmth, and your silence, comes the final and most revealing moment. The test of stillness. You've walked away, not in anger, not to punish, not to manipulate, but to reclaim the parts of yourself that were poured too freely into someone who did not earn them. Now what? Now you wait, not for him, but for clarity. You wait in your stillness. You wait in your power. You wait in the fullness of your life, without chasing, without explaining, without hoping. And from this space of non-movement, something extraordinary happens. Truth reveals itself. Carl Jung said, "When you stop acting from fear, you begin to see reality as it is." And this is exactly what this moment is about. Because when you stop doing all the work, when you stop showing up for someone who hasn't shown up for you, you give the relationship the opportunity to reflect its actual state. And here is the raw truth. If he wants to be with you, he will come. If he values you, he will act. If he respects you, he will reach out with intention, not confusion, not crumbs, not breadcrumbs of affection, but actual presence. You won't need to chase, remind, drop hints, or force anything. When you stop moving, you allow what's meant to come forward. But if he doesn't, you've won something even more powerful, the truth. Because if your absence doesn't move him, your presence never really did either. Not on a soul level. Not in the way you deserve. And that's the hardest part to accept. That sometimes, the people we gave our hearts to never saw us clearly. They only saw the version of themselves reflected in our love. And when that reflection disappears, they don't miss you. They miss how they felt around you. That's why silence is the final test. Because in your stillness, there are no mixed messages. You're not performing at your value anymore. You're simply living it. And in that space, he is either called forward or cleared from your path. And while you wait in that stillness, you rise even higher. You build a life that excites you. You connect with people who inspire you. You focus on your peace, your healing, your happiness. You create beauty from your solitude, not as a performance, but as a lifestyle. You become the woman who laughs without looking at her phone, who takes herself on dates, who walks into a room and doesn't wonder if she's being watched. You become the woman who no longer orbits someone else's world. You become the world. And from that energy, you attract. Not men who want to possess you, but men who want to meet you. Not partners who see you as an extension of their ego, but partners who are grounded enough to hold space for your depth. Let him come to you, not out of silence that begs to be broken, but out of wholeness. One no longer fears being alone. And if he comes, make no mistake, this is your decision, not his. He doesn't get to walk back into your life just because he finally noticed the silence. He doesn't get to reclaim what he ignored. He doesn't get access to you just because he's uncomfortable with your distance. Let his return be tested, just like your patience was. Does he come with clarity? Does he come with change? Does he come with real effort? Does he come to build, or just to regain control? Because this time, the old version of you isn't there waiting. The woman who once texted first, who forgave too quickly, who settled for half love, that version of you no longer exists. And if he's still speaking to that past version, he's already too late. Because now you're a different woman, the woman who doesn't explain why she left, the woman who doesn't give out her energy freely, the woman who doesn't negotiate her worth for temporary affection. You don't say, "I told you so." You don't say, "I was waiting." You just stand there calm and whole and let him reveal whether he's grown or if he's just reacting to the discomfort of your absence. And if he doesn't come, if he never calls, if he never texts, if the silence remains, honor that too, because his non-action was his loudest answer. You didn't lose anything. You gained freedom from a connection that never had the foundation to hold your heart. Sometimes we have to walk away not because we stopped loving, but because we finally started loving ourselves more. That love begins in silence. That love is protected by boundaries. That love chooses you over the fantasy, over the chase, over the hope that one day he might change. So if he comes, let it be because he sees your value, not because he misses your validation. Let it be because he's ready to rise, not because he fell apart without you. Let it be because he wants to co-create, not because he's afraid of losing control. You didn't disconnect to get his attention. You disconnected to reconnect with your power. And now, in your stillness, you are whole. Carl Jung said, "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do." Apply that to him. Apply that to yourself. Watch actions, not words. Feel alignment, not fantasy. Move with truth, not fear. So let this final act be one of grace. You don't need revenge. You don't need closure. You don't even need him to understand. You simply need to honor what your silence taught you. That your worth doesn't need to be proven, only protected. You are not a backup plan. You are not a second choice. You are not a source of ego strokes. You are a woman who learned to walk away when her presence was no longer respected. And that, more than anything, is your power. So yes, let him come to you, but only if he's coming correct. And if he doesn't, you're already home. This video isn't about making him chase you. It's about reminding you that you are worthy of being chosen unconditionally, and that when you stop chasing, you start attracting what you truly deserve.